Hi, this is Gary. Welcome to today's video. So 2020, it's thrown everything it had at us. It's now gone, it's in the back window. It's time to look forward to what we're going to be doing in 2021. Today, we're going to take a look at the 7 pen and ink combinations that I'm going to be using during January 2021. These are going to be my daily driver pens, and they're going to be the ones that I'm going to play around with and experiment to see what they can do. So join me now down on the mat and we'll take a look at these 7 pens. So here we are down on the mat, time to jump in with the first pen. And this is a pen from Jinhao. It's the Jinho 100 Centennial. It's in the Meteorite pattern. If we take a look at the nib. So that nib, it's that glorious two-tone nib. So there you can see the gold, you can see the silver. Really nice nib, looks pretty. The whole pen itself looks quite nice. It's a medium nib, but what we're interested in, how does it write? So coming on over, we've got a Jinho 100 with a medium nib. And I'm going to say this is the Meteorite pattern, as I do have a number of these. The ink, well, it's by Robert Oster, so it's an Australian ink, and it's called Vine Leaf. I really like this ink. It's a really nice, vibrant green. It's not in your face, but it's nice and it really jumps off the paper. Let's test our wetness. So here we go, immediate. Yeah, we expect that. 10 seconds. Still fairly wet. Would let jump up now to 30 seconds. Then finally, we'll go for 1 minute. And after a minute, that's dry. So here we have the Jinho 100 Centennial in Meteorite with the medium nib and Robert Oster Vine Leaf. So pen number 2, it's this one. It's by Moonman. It's the Moonman M800. This one's in blue. Love these pens. I love the pattern and the colouring on them. The nib on this is a Moonman nib. So the M800 comes with 2 different nibs. It comes with either a Moonman nib or a Bock nib. This is the Moonman nib. It's a lovely gold coloured nib. The nibs only come in fine, but they are really nice writers. So this is a Moonman M800. I'm going to put B, so we know it's the blue one. And it has that Moonman fine nib. The ink I'm using for this is by Noodler. And it's Navajo Turquoise. This is one of my favourite blue inks. I just love the vibrancy of it. Let's test our wetness. So that's immediate. We expect that. We expect to see it nice and wet. 10 seconds. Jumping up to 30 seconds. Then finally, 1 minute. After a minute, well, there's still a little bit of wetness in there, so definitely a long drying ink for this one. So this is the Moonman M800 in blue with the Moonman nib and Noodler's Navajo Turquoise ink. Our third pen for January is returning from December. It's the Twisby Vac 700R Iris. This one has got the broad nib. I love the colouring of this and love the colouring on that nib as well. Look at the colours. Yes, you've got that silvery base, but then you've got purples, you've got pinks, there's some oranges. I see hints of greens and blues in there. It's an absolutely gorgeous nib to look at. So this is the Twisby Vac 700R. It's the iris pattern and it's a broad nib. I've got another Aussie ink in here. It's by Dieman and it's called Deciduous Beech. I've had problems with this ink in other pens that it's not really coming out very nice, but certainly in this Vac 700R, it seems to be really shining, it's coming really through, and it looks absolutely gorgeous when you see it on paper. Let's test our wetness. So this is immediate. It's very wet, we expect to see that. So now we'll wait 10 seconds. 30 seconds. Then finally 1 minute. And after a minute, that one looks like it's nice and dry. So this is the Vac 700R in the iris pattern with that broad nib and Dieman Deciduous Beech for the ink. Pen number 4. This is a fairly new pen to my collection. I've only had it now for about 2 weeks. It's by Fountain Pen Revolution and it's the Darjeeling model. Beautiful red colour on it. I really like the colour of the pen. We take a quick look at the nib. So the nib, nice and simple. This is what I like. I don't necessarily need to see all these complicated fancy nibs. The nib is there for one thing only, putting ink on paper. This is an Indian pen, so it's the very first pen that I've had that's been made in India, so I'm interested to see how this goes. One of the things I've been looking at in the past few months is a number of pens made in India, so I thought, well, this is an inexpensive way to try out an India pen, just to get a feel for them. Let's see how it writes. So we have the Fountain Pen Revolution, which I'm just going to abbreviate to be FPR, Darjeeling. It's a medium nib, although looking at this at the moment it looks like it's more on the fine side of medium, but I'll get a better feel as the month goes on. The ink is by PenBBS. It is number 276 and it's called Chengdu Red. Now, I've seen this ink on a number of YouTube reviews and I like the way it comes over on them reviews. I like the look of it because it looks like it's got some nice shading. So I'll be interested to see how this one goes through the course of the month. Let's check out our wetness. Here we go, immediate. Looks like it's a nice, vibrant and wet ink. 10 seconds. That's dried out quite quickly. 20 seconds. Well, that looks like it's virtually dry, although I can still see a little bit coming off. We'll now wait for 1 minute. So here we go, after a minute, definitely dry now. So this looks like it's a bit of a faster drying ink, which is nice. So as I say, it'll be interesting to see how I go during the month with this one. I'm just going to reposition the paper. So that was the Fountain Pen Revolution Darjeeling in that lovely red colour. And that's got PenBBS number 276 Chengdu Red ink. So the next pen, it's another Moonman M800. This M800, I've got to be honest, it's one of my favourite pens. They just feel so nice. They sit so well in my hand. And they write really well as well. The amber pen here, this has got the Bock nib. So that's the difference between this and the blue one. If we look at the nib here, you can see it's a two-tone nib. So yes, the majority is that gold colour, but then we've also got the silver colour as well. It's again a fine nib. All the Moonman M800 nibs are fine, regardless of whether it's a Moonman one or a Bock one. So here we have the Moonman M800. Going to put a little A next to it. And as I said, this has got that Bock nib. The ink in here, it's another one by Robert Oster. and it's called Aussie Brown. And we're really getting into brown inks at the moment, and Robert Oster make a lovely range, well, a lovely range of inks full stop, but they're brown inks, they've got some really nice colours. Let's check our wetness. So this is immediate. Well, already we can see it looks drier than the other inks. We'll wait for 10 seconds. Looking at that, we're virtually dry already. We'll jump up and do our 30-second test. And that's dry. One of the things I've noticed with Robert Oster inks, especially when combined with this Moonman, they are very dry. I don't know if it's the issue with the pen being dry or if the inks just dry really quickly. So this is the Moonman M800 in amber with the block nib, and that's got Robert Oster Aussie Brown ink in it. So before we talk about the next pen, this was a last minute substitution. I had been aiming to use this, which is a Platinum Preppy. I love my Platinum Preppies. They're really lovely, and they're really cheap. But when I went to write with this yesterday as I was doing my testing, I ended up with ink splots all over the paper, and I was thinking to myself, well, that's not right. So a bit of investigating, you know, the actual nib unit turns. So I think the nib unit has come loose here. So this is something I'm going to look at. I know it's only a $7 pen, so you know I might end up chucking it away, but it's going to be nice to play around with it. Unfortunately, what that means is though, it had to come out of my rotation for January. So in its place, I've decided to use this one. So when I bought this, it was advertised as a Wing Sun 3008. After I used this in a video a few weeks ago, I got a lot of comments saying, well, actually, no, it's not. It's not a 3008. It's a copy of a 3008, which I'm quite happy to go with that. So I'm just going to refer to this as my 3008 clone. We'll take a quick look at the nib. The nib, it's nothing to write home about. It's not an exciting nib, but it's a nice nib. It writes really well, as we'll see when we get to our writing samples. So this is a Wing Sun 3008 clone. It's an extra fine nib. The ink in here, well, it's a Robert Oster ink. And it's called Terracotta. Nice orangey brown ink. Our wetness tests. So we've got immediate, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, and at 30 seconds the ink is dry. So again, this is building on what I was saying with that previous ink. It looks to me like the Robert Oster inks tend to dry a lot quicker. So this is the Wing Sun 3008 clone with an extra fine nib and Robert Oster Terracotta ink. With this pen, this is my cheapest pen. It cost me about $3.50 Australian dollars. And part of what I want to use this month this for is to experiment with playing around with that nib. You know, I think the nib could be smoother. I'm hoping to be able to try different ways of tweaking it to see if I can get it to be a bit wetter as well. So this is going to be an interesting experimental pen for me for this month. So from the cheapest pen that I've got at $3.50, we're jumping up to the most expensive pen at roughly 250 Aussie dollars. And this, it's a Pilot Custom Heritage 92. I've got this in the black colour. It looks really nice. It feels nice, especially when you compare it to that $3.50 pen. You know, you're paying so much more, so you'd expect more from it. If we look at the nib on this, so this nib, although it's silver coloured, this is a gold nib. This is my first gold nib. I received this pen as a Christmas present from my loving wife. So this is going to be the real first outing for this pen. I'm really interested to see how it goes. Especially I'm comparing it to some mid-range pens and that cheap $3.50 pen. So here we have the Pilot Custom Heritage 92 in that medium nib. This is so nice to write with. The ink in here is by Pilot. It's Iroshizuku Momiji. Lovely coloured ink. I'm hoping to really play around with this pen during the month. Let's test our wetness. So immediately, we get this lovely pink colour coming from that. 10 seconds. Doesn't look much of a difference in terms of drying. Let's try for 30 seconds. Still an awful lot of wetness there. We'll leave it now for 1 minute. And after a minute, that appears to be dry. So this is the Pilot Custom Heritage 92 with that medium nib and Pilot Iroshizuku Momiji ink. I mean, looking at this, when I look at the Momiji and I look at the Deciduous Beech here, it's hard to get them both in the camera at the same time. There we go. Well, if I look at these, although this is a medium and this is a broad, to me, on my first look, there doesn't seem to be much of a difference between the two. And a Japanese medium, you'd expect to be a little bit more on the finer side. So this is something, again, I'm looking forward to trying out during the month and comparing the line sizes between the two pens. So I'm going to just clear all this off and then fetch in all the pens for this month. So this is the 7 pens I'm going to be using during January of 2021. The Jinhao 100 in Meteorite with Robert Oster vine leaf. The Moon Man M800 in the blue with the Moonman nib, and that's got Noodler's Navajo Turquoise. A Twisby Vac 700R in the iris pattern with Van Dieman's Deciduous Beech. A fountain pen Revolution Darjeeling with PenBBS number 276 Chengdu Red. A Moonman M800 amber with the Bock nib with Robert Oster Aussie Brown. The Wingsung 3008 clone with Robert Oster Terracotta. And the Pilot Custom Heritage 92 with Pilot Iroshizuku Momiji. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Do you have any of these pens and inks? What pens and inks are you planning to use this month? Again, drop a comment below. Let's kickstart the conversation and share our experiences with pens and inks. If you liked the video, please hit that thumbs up button, give me a like. For everyone that likes and comments on my posts, well, it helps to boost it with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.